There are days when everything feels effortless. Your mind is still, your conversations flow, and the world seems to cooperate. And then, without warning, everything shifts. A single comment, an unexpected delay, a sharp look, or a personal disappointment. And suddenly the calm is gone. You're tense, irritated, distracted. What once felt like control turns into emotional turbulence, and you find yourself reacting, overthinking, or regretting your next move. This is the nature of life. It doesn't warn you before it changes direction. And no matter how much we plan, chaos eventually arrives. Stress mounts, people disappoint us, life throws its usual storm. But here's what most never realize. The storm outside you isn't what wrecks you, it's the storm inside. That's where Stoicism begins, not with controlling the world, but with mastering how you meet it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And Epictetus, perhaps even more bluntly, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." These aren't just philosophical quotes, they're instructions. Instructions for how to move through life without being broken by it. Because calmness isn't just a mood or a temporary feeling. It's a discipline, a way of thinking, a practiced response, and more than anything, it's a decision. The decision to be unmoved. Not because you don't care, but because you care more about protecting your peace than proving your point. In this session, we're going to explore how to train that kind of mind, the kind that doesn't get rattled by disrespect, that doesn't crumble under pressure, that doesn't lose itself in anger, fear, or chaos. You'll learn how calmness becomes a form of strength, how losing control is always a choice, why silence is more powerful than shouting, and how living in the present moment is the anchor that holds you steady when everything around you starts to spin. We're not here to escape reality. We're here to become strong enough to stand inside it and remain unmoved. Let's begin. 1. Control your mind, or it will control you. There's a battle happening inside every person, and most don't even know they're losing. It isn't against the world or other people. It's against their own mind, against the flood of thoughts that come uninvited, against reactions that feel automatic, against moods that hijack your clarity without asking permission. How many times have you said something in anger that you didn't mean? How often have you replayed a conversation for hours, trying to undo it in your head? How often have you wanted to stay calm, to respond with wisdom, but found yourself reacting loudly, emotionally, impulsively? That's what happens when your mind runs the show. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. They didn't aim to suppress emotion. They aimed to rule over it, not with coldness but with clarity, not by avoiding life, but by facing it with discipline. Because an untrained mind is like an untrained animal, easily distracted, dangerously unpredictable, and quick to turn against you when it senses discomfort. Imagine this, you're at a dinner with friends, everything's pleasant, the conversation is light. Then someone makes a pointed remark, maybe a joke at your expense. It's subtle, but it stings. You feel heat rise in your chest, a flush in your face, the urge to reply with sarcasm or to embarrass them back wells up like a reflex. But ask yourself, who's really in charge in that moment? You or the emotion? If you react instantly, you've handed the reins over. That single sentence, that fleeting discomfort, now dictates your behavior. Your peace is no longer yours. It belongs to the one who poked your ego. But what if you pause? What if you take a breath, acknowledge the emotion silently, and choose not to respond? Not out of fear, but out of strength. That's the moment you step into real control. Because power doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from not being dominated by yourself. Epictetus said, "We are not disturbed by things, but by the views we take of them." It's not the comment, it's not the person, it's not even the tone, it's your interpretation. And the mind, if left unchecked, will always interpret events in ways that serve the ego, not the truth. But here's the good news. The mind can be trained. You can practice catching thoughts before they become emotion. You can practice observing your urges instead of obeying them. You can train your response to criticism, to traffic, to failure, to disrespect. Not by pretending it doesn't affect you, but by proving it doesn't control you. Start small. When someone cuts you off in traffic, pause. When your phone buzzes with bad news, don't rush to judgment. When frustration rises, breathe before you act. These aren't passive moments. They're practice rounds, and each one sharpens your awareness, because if you do not control your mind, it will control you, and the life it builds for you will be reactive, volatile, and exhausting. But when you master the mind, you master everything it touches, your decisions, your energy, your peace. That's where strength begins, not with force, but with internal order. 2. Anger doesn't solve problems. Anger is loud. It makes us feel powerful, in control, like we're finally doing something. But in reality, anger is rarely a solution. It's a spark that often sets fire to things we didn't mean to burn. Everyone knows the feeling. You're disrespected, overlooked, provoked, and instantly the mind floods with emotion. Your jaw tightens, your breath shortens, and that voice inside says, "Say something, do something, don't let them get away with it." In that moment you feel justified. But what happens next? You snap, you shout, you press send on the message you'll wish you hadn't. And maybe you feel better for a few seconds, but then clarity returns, and you realize you've lost more than you gained. You damaged trust, you fueled the conflict, you stepped out of your own character. The Stoics warned about this. Seneca wrote an entire essay called On Anger, in which he described it as a temporary madness. He didn't say we shouldn't feel it, he said we shouldn't follow it. Think of a typical example. You're driving. Someone cuts you off, no signal, no warning. Instantly, your heart pounds and your hands grip the wheel tighter. Maybe you tail them, maybe you honk, maybe you curse under your breath or shout into the empty air. But what changed? Did they hear you? Did they learn a lesson? Did you make the road safer? All that happened was you traded your peace for a few seconds of adrenaline. You gave control of your internal state to a stranger in a car who probably didn't even notice. That's not strength, that's surrender. Stoicism teaches that the only true power you have is over your own mind, over your choices, over your emotions. Everything else, traffic, disrespect, rudeness, misfortune, is outside your control. And if you let outside things rule your inner state, you'll never be free. Anger may feel like action, but it almost never leads to resolution. At best, it escalates tension. At worst, it turns you into the very thing you were reacting against. Now, this doesn't mean you suppress everything and stay silent forever. It means you pause, you observe, you ask yourself, will this help or will it harm? Because there's a difference between defending yourself and reacting defensively, between acting from reason and lashing out from ego. The Stoic man doesn't let anger lead, not because he's weak, but because he's strategic. He knows that staying calm isn't surrender. It's the clearest way to stay in control, to stay effective, and to stay himself. So next time you feel the fire rise, breathe. Don't confuse reaction with response. Don't confuse volume with value. Don't confuse fury with strength, because real strength isn't in how loud you can get. It's in how little you're shaken when the world tries to provoke you. And the moment you can feel anger rise, recognize it and choose not to obey it. That's when you win, quietly. completely. 3. Calmness is strength, not weakness. In today's world, calmness is often misunderstood. People assume that if you don't shout back, you must not care. If you don't argue, you must be afraid. If you don't match someone's energy, you must be weak. But the Stoic knows better. Calmness isn't a lack of power, it's the presence of mastery. Think about how most people define strength: loud voices, intensity, aggression, dominance. We see it in politics, in media, in business. The one who speaks the most, interrupts the most, or reacts the fastest is assumed to be the one in control. But watch closely, and you'll see something different. Those who need to be loud are often the most fragile. True strength isn't reactive, it's responsive. It doesn't need to prove itself with volume. It proves itself by not being provoked. Imagine you're in a meeting or group discussion. Someone disagrees with you, not just casually, but publicly and with a sharp tone. Maybe they're trying to embarrass you. Maybe they want to appear dominant. Everyone turns to you. They expect a clash, a rebuttal, a spark, but instead you stay composed, you pause, you look at them, not with hostility, but with control, and you respond with clarity, not force. That moment does more than win respect. It redefines the room, because what they expected was reaction, what they got was self-possession. Marcus Aurelius ruled over one of the largest empires in history, yet his journals weren't filled with commands or praise. They were reminders to himself. Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. The world is full of storms, emotional ones, social ones, personal ones, but the person who stays still while others lose their heads, that's the one who commands real presence. Not because they dominate others, but because they've already mastered themselves. Calmness is not avoidance, it's not weakness, it's restraint chosen, it's discipline practiced. It's the understanding that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, and you don't have to respond to every slight. And the irony is, when you don't react, when you maintain your posture, your silence, your clarity, it unsettles people more than any outburst could. It forces them to confront their own chaos. Because nothing is more disarming than someone who refuses to be drawn into conflict. The calm man is feared, not because he threatens anyone, but because he can't be shaken by anyone. And that, more than volume, more than force, is what real strength looks like. 4. Life is unfair, but that doesn't matter. At some point we all face a hard truth. Life doesn't always reward effort. You can work harder, love deeper, and act with integrity, and still be overlooked, betrayed, undervalued. You might watch someone take credit for your work. You might see others succeed with shortcuts while you stay disciplined. And when that happens, the natural response is anger, bitterness, or despair. But the Stoics had no illusions about fairness. They didn't expect the world to hand out rewards evenly. In fact, they warned against expecting life to be fair at all. Because fairness isn't guaranteed, but your response always is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste time arguing what a good man should be one." That one sentence is everything. Don't expect fairness. Embody excellence anyway. Not because it will always be recognized, but because it's who you choose to be. Nick Vujicic was born without arms or legs. No warning, no preparation, just a reality he couldn't change. And yet, he chose not to let it define him. As a child, he struggled with despair, isolation, even suicidal thoughts. But over time, he made a decision. If he couldn't control the fact of his condition, he would control how he responded to it. Today, he's a speaker, author, and inspiration to millions. Not because life was fair to him, but because he stopped waiting for it to be. This is the essence of Stoicism. Life may not be fair, but that doesn't mean you have to suffer, because suffering isn't built into the event. It's built into the judgment. And that's the one thing you always have the power to change. So when life is unfair, ask yourself, does this deserve my peace? Will getting angry make things more just, or will it just make me weaker? The Stoic path says, don't wait for fairness, choose dignity, choose effort, choose clarity, not because life always returns the favor, but because you refuse to let circumstance dictate your character. You can let injustice turn you bitter, or you can let it refine your patience, sharpen your discipline, and build your resilience. Fair or not, life is what it is, but who you become in response, that's entirely in your hands. 5. Losing control is always a choice. People often say, I lost it, as if anger, panic, or frustration are things that just take over, as if they happen to us, without our permission. But the truth is harder to accept. Losing control isn't automatic. It's chosen. Even if that choice happens so fast we don't notice it. Let's say someone cuts in line at the store. Instantly your chest tightens. Your mind fires off a dozen justifications for why this person is wrong and why you need to say something, loudly. But ask yourself, at what point did they make you angry? The moment they stepped forward? Or the moment you decided it was worth turning your peace into a fight? Epictetus said, remember, it is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must believe that you are being harmed. It's the belief that creates the emotion, the story you attach to the event, and that story is optional. Here's a story that reveals the Stoic mindset perfectly. An old man sits reading on a crowded train. A young passenger accidentally steps on his foot. The young man quickly apologizes, clearly embarrassed. The old man simply nods and goes back to reading. Another man, watching, says, "Why didn't you yell at him?" That would have made me furious. The old man smiles and replies, "My anger wouldn't have healed my foot, but it would have disturbed my mind." That's wisdom. That's restraint. That's understanding what's actually worth your energy. We tend to think that reacting strongly makes us powerful, but often it makes us predictable. It makes us easy to control. If someone knows how to get under your skin, they don't need to outthink you. They just need to provoke you. And once you're triggered, they own the moment. But if you refuse to give them that reaction, if you stay composed, if you respond with clarity instead of chaos, they lose that power instantly. This doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means standing firm in your self-control, because that's the strongest position you can take. Losing control doesn't make you heard. It makes you vulnerable. It lowers your guard, and it always leaves a cost behind: regret, tension, or fallout that you have to clean up later. When you stay calm, you stay in command. And that's not just a mental advantage, it's a moral one, because it means you chose to protect your peace over proving a point. Next time you feel yourself losing it, pause and ask, who wins if I lose control right now? What do I actually gain from letting this take over? The answer is usually nothing. And when you realize that, you'll start to see every moment of irritation not as a threat, but as training. Training in your ability to choose differently. And that's what self-mastery is, not never feeling emotion, but never being ruled by it. 6. Don't live in the past or the future. A restless mind is rarely in the present. It's either caught in what's already gone or what hasn't happened yet. We replay old mistakes. We reimagine past conversations. We wonder how things could have gone. Or we race ahead, worrying about what might happen next, what could go wrong, what we haven't prepared for. And in doing so, we abandon the only moment that truly exists, right now. Marcus Aurelius said, "Man lives only in the present, in this fleeting instant. All the rest of his life is either past and gone or uncertain." He didn't write that as poetry. He wrote it as practice, because the Stoics believed that calm comes from presence, not just physically but mentally. You cannot control the past. You cannot touch the future. But you can control how you meet this moment. That's where peace lives. That's where power begins. Think of Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. Early in his career, he struggled not just with his opponents, but with his own mind. He'd get stuck on missed shots, replaying them in his head. Or he'd look ahead, fearing what the scoreboard might show. But everything changed when he began focusing on just one thing, the point in front of him. Not the match, not the crowd, just this moment, this serve, this breath. That shift didn't just improve his performance, it anchored his mind. It gave him control. The same applies in everyday life. You may not be holding a tennis racket, but you're holding responsibilities, relationships, routines. And when your mind slips too far into yesterday or too far into tomorrow, you lose the only thing you can actually influence, the way you show up now. So how do you practice this? You start by noticing when regret starts pulling you backward. Pause. Remind yourself, that already happened. I've learned what I can. It no longer belongs here. And when anxiety tries to pull you forward, say, that hasn't happened. I'll face it when it comes. Right now, I'm here. Presence is not a mystical idea, it's a discipline. It's choosing to breathe slowly when your thoughts speed up. It's grounding yourself in what your senses are experiencing instead of what your imagination is projecting. It's putting your full attention into the task in front of you, no matter how small. The present moment may not be perfect, but it's real, and that makes it more powerful than any fantasy or memory your mind can create. If your goal is to be calm, to be stable, to be at peace, this is your entry point. Be where your feet are. Speak from where your breath is. Act from what's in front of you, not what's already past or what might be coming. Because life doesn't ask you to control everything, it asks you to show up for it. And you can't do that if your mind is somewhere else. 7. Chaos is constant, but calm is a practice. If you're waiting for life to slow down before you find peace, you'll be waiting forever. There will always be another problem, another distraction, another person who says something they shouldn't, another unexpected challenge that shows up at the worst possible time. Chaos is not the exception, it's the rule. But here's the shift. While chaos is constant, calm can be too if you train it. Not once, not when things are easy, but daily, especially when things are hard. The Stoics didn't believe in calm as an idea. They practiced it as a discipline. Every moment of frustration, every insult, every delay was a test, a training ground. And each time you resist the urge to react, you're strengthening that muscle. Imagine you're in the middle of a family argument. Emotions are running high. Someone throws a jab, says something below the belt. You feel your jaw tighten, your pulse spike, and the words forming fast in your throat. You want to fire back to make them feel what you're feeling, but then you pause, you take a breath, you hear the words, but you don't answer them. You stay still, not because you're avoiding conflict, but because you've already won a deeper one. The battle inside. That's what practice looks like, not in theory, but in moments like this. Or maybe you're dealing with a delay that throws your schedule off, a flat tire, a cancelled meeting, a sudden mess that wasn't your fault. Do you erupt or do you adjust? The world gives you daily invitations to lose your composure. But every time you decline one, you build the kind of strength that can't be taken away. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." That includes small adversities too, not just tragedies, but everyday irritations, traffic, rudeness, disappointment, because the strongest man isn't the one who never feels stress, it's the one who trains under it. The one who uses real life as his gym. and calmness as his strongest form of resistance. Remember, emotional control is not passive. It's not about rolling over. It's about staying rooted, staying steady, choosing response over reaction, even when your ego demands the opposite. That's the difference between people who are controlled by life and those who master it. One waits for peace to appear. The other creates it, on purpose, in practice, one moment at a time. 8. Circumstances do not define you. You were not born with control over your starting point. You didn't choose your family, your early surroundings, or the first hardships that shaped you. Life handed you a script, but Stoicism teaches you that you don't have to read from it forever. Circumstances are the stage, but character, that's yours to build. Some are born into struggle, others fall into it later. Illness, loss, rejection, poverty, these things arrive often uninvited. And when they do, most people believe one dangerous lie: this is who I am now. They start to see their reflection in the weight of their hardship. They confuse the pain with their identity. But the Stoics rejected that idea. Epictetus, who was born a slave, crippled early in life and still became one of the most respected philosophers in history, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You've heard that phrase before, but sit with it. If you believe it fully, it changes everything. It means being broke doesn't make you broken. It means being hurt doesn't make you helpless. It means being underestimated doesn't mean you can't rise. It means the facts of your life are not the definition of your life. There's a story of a young boy born into deep poverty. He heard the whispers early, he won't make it far. The world judged him by his surroundings, but he decided he wouldn't accept their conclusion. He studied, he trained, he worked quietly, relentlessly, and over time, the limits others placed on him began to dissolve. Not because the world changed, but because he did. That's the Stoic way, to look hardship in the face and say, "You don't define me, you reveal me." Circumstances will try to limit you. They will whisper stories of doubt. They will point to your past and say, "Stay here. This is your place." But you don't have to listen. You don't have to obey. You can be calm under pressure. You can be strong in discomfort. You can stay silent when others shout, steady when others panic, disciplined when others fall apart. And not because life is easy, but because you decided who you are and you act like it every day. That's what Stoicism teaches, that your power begins not when the world gives you better conditions, but when you stop letting those conditions control your mind. You are not your hardship, you are the way you move through it. Final reflection. You've made it this far because something in you wants more than comfort. You want control, not over the world, but over yourself, over your thoughts, over your reactions, over the quiet battle that most people lose every single day, the one between their emotions and their reason. And if you've been paying attention, you already know the truth. Calmness isn't a mood, it's a mastery. You don't find it, you build it. Through how you respond when someone disrespects you, through how you carry yourself when things fall apart, through your silence when others provoke, your breath when others rage, your clarity when others drown in confusion. The Stoics didn't promise an easy life. They promised a clear mind in the middle of a difficult one. They didn't tell you how to avoid the storm. They taught you how to walk through it and not be moved. And now you carry that same choice. You can live like most people, reactive, restless, ruled by emotion. Or you can live like a Stoic, calm, steady, grounded in reason. You can choose peace, not passivity, strength, not noise, discipline, not chaos. Because once you realize that the world doesn't owe you stillness, that it's your job to create it, you stop blaming and you start building. So the next time life hits you without warning, don't ask why it happened. Ask who you'll be in response. Because the calmest one in the room is rarely the weakest. More often, he's already won. Without raising his voice, without losing his center, without needing anyone else to validate his strength. If this session gave you something to reflect on, share it. Like the video, leave a comment with a word that defines your mindset moving forward. Stillness, clarity, control, or just say, I choose calm. Your journey doesn't end here, but this is the foundation. Now carry it forward with discipline, with grace, and with the quiet power of someone who knows. The world doesn't get to shake you unless you hand it the permission.